Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to have you here. I'm just completely obsessed with this beautiful podcast, this gorgeous opportunity to connect with you in this way that is so meaningful. I'm loving the conversations. I'm loving the women I'm meeting. I love that we have longer opportunities to chat with the Say Yes Summits. I love that we have this gorgeous in-person community with the Say Yes Sisterhood. And I love that I'm in your ear twice a week. It's so good. I'm so appreciative of you. You are spurring me on to love and good deeds. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really, thank you. Because without you listening, apparently I don't get to talk. So thank you so much, because this really has been such a joyful expression for me. I love the women that I'm getting to meet and have these conversations with, and today's guest is no exception. Kamini Wood is a coach, a speaker, an author, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, certified life coach. She specializes in helping high achievers, because high takes one to know one, teens through adults overcome anxiety, stress, perfectionism, ADHD, toxic relationships, and more. As the founder and CEO of Live Joy Your Way and the creator of the AuthenticMe method, Kamini empowers individuals to break free from limiting beliefs, release trauma, and rediscover their authentic selves. Her work is deeply rooted in helping clients build courage, set boundaries, and develop self-compassion, leading to transformational results in wellness, anxiety management, money mindset, and relationships. Having personally overcome toxic and abusive relationships, she brings empathy and firsthand experience to her coaching practice. She is such a delight. I know you are going to love this conversation with Kamini Wood. Kamini, I am so excited to have this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Oh, it's my great pleasure. It was so fun in looking through all the amazing things that you're up to, of how many of those things correspond with things that interest me and things that I'm excited about. And now that I see your beautiful face, I don't know how in the world you've accomplished all of these things and that you're not 87 years old and 3 people. So
Thank you for that. Thank you for that compliment, because there are moments where I do feel like maybe I'm 87 years old. At least the way my body creaks around these days.
right? Oh my gosh, I just had a woman on the podcast who is 69, and that queen is unstoppable. She is creating all of these supplement solutions, and she works out all the time, and she lives between Hawaii and Lake Tahoe, and she's so cool. I desire to be like that when I'm 70.
Yeah. I was going to say, when I fully grow up, I'd like to have some of that. Thank you.
Right? So fun. So fun. It's always, I love when people can show us what's available for us.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
so good.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
Oh, I love that question. And it leans into part of what you just mentioned about all of the different modalities that I work in. Those were out all a series of yes to myself, because I am at heart, I truly love to learn. It's been something that I've always loved. And also, the other part of me is that I really do thrive off of being in service of others, meaning I thrive on seeing other people see their magnificence. And so that's how I say yes to myself. Because even starting my coaching practice was a huge yes to myself. It was completely outside the box. It was, and I say outside the box because I spent so many years worrying about making sure everybody else was okay. I was 100% a people pleaser. There was comedy ended up at the end of everything. And so that was my biggest yes to myself is, oh gosh, I really want to do this and I'm going to do this. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, that was my very first yes to myself. And then it's just been a series of yeses. Like, I'm interested in this. So yes, I'm going to give myself permission to go learn that. I want to work in this area. Yes, I'm going to go do that. And now I do offer some yeses to myself around uh pausing and slowing down, because one of the things also is I am a high achiever by nature and I constantly think about, what might be next for myself. So another yes to myself is, how can we slow down?
Right. Which is just so, it is saying yes to yourself. It's saying yes to
Mhm.
presence. It's saying yes to self reflection
Yes,
and
yes.
approaching each day with curiosity and discovery. I can see, because we have this in common, of the lifelong learner, of the hungry head of the dragon, like cannot get enough.
Yes.
And that coupled with the contribution, it's not like that all the learning blows up the balloon and the
Mhm.
contribution deflates the balloon in the sharing of the information. I feel like it just inflates the balloon bigger. Like, and now we're
Right.
going higher. Oh, and look what we can see from here. Oh, they need something.
Yes.
Oh, let's go over here. And so it
Yes.
can
Yes.
be, although that is fun and exciting and invigorating, and then there's a lot of momentum around that, it requires a lot of intention in
Hmm.
checking in making sure that we're in alignment, that anything, even if we used to love to do it 10 minutes ago, we love doing it, or we love doing it with this other client, but not this one. What are those indicators that feel more upstream than
Hmm.
downstream?
Yes. Yeah, I love your metaphor of the balloon, by the way. But that was something that I had to learn was, okay, those were all yeses and they felt really good. And then it is also okay to say yes to myself in terms of what, let me decipher. It's okay for me to discern what does align for me and also when I need to rest, because that was a big one, right? Is just knowing that it's okay to rest. It's okay, after a long day, like I do it sometimes, I just want to put my feet up and watch a show. Why? Not really for the show, but because I get to hang out with my kids because they're
Mm-hmm,
watching the show. And
mm-hmm.
that's a yes. That's a yes to myself. And it's yes to slowing down, which was an
Right.
important yes for me.
It is an important yes, and I would love to know how you're doing that, because I feel like I'm certainly recognizing that, and certainly have a grasp on the English language and understand the concepts of rest, but similarly to this concept of introversion, like
Mm.
I don't understand that. So this idea of rest and this, not a belief, because a belief is just a thought we keep thinking, this knowing that it is safe to be
Mm.
at rest.
Yeah. Oh, that's big. I love how you just phrased that. The knowing that it's okay to rest, that it's safe to rest. I think that's such a key point because there is so much fear around resting for many of us. And
Mm-hmm.
that was definitely the case for me. And the way that I came to recognize that is, and for me, and I say this with my clients all the time, is sometimes it feels too big. So how can you break it down? So
Mm-hmm.
for me, learning to rest was not maybe sitting down and watching TV. It was, I'm going to take 5 minutes and I'm going to walk around the house or something, right? So it's smaller. And then realizing nothing broke, everything is fine. And then you expand it to 10 minutes, right? You figure out a way to bite size it, to make it
Mm,
more palatable, because really what we're looking for is that safety. And once we know it's safe, we actually will engage with it. And that's what at least that's what I needed. And so now I know it's totally safe for me to take the evening. It's going to be fine. Nothing is going to fall apart if I'm just
right.
being present with my kids. And also, the other part for me in terms of rest was recognizing that if I don't do that in terms of value, one of my values is being a mom and family. If that's really a true value, what do I need in order to allow for me to live into that value? And it
Mhm.
became very clear that rest was part of that.
For sure. And the fact that you now I'm thinking, oh, and good for you because you were resting and being with your kids at the same time. So that's a double double, which is I I know I said this a couple weeks ago on the podcast, but there's no fun till the chores are done. And I have to have like 47 ROIs for everything that I do, or else I don't
Mm,
know. And I think that's the other thing is that I get as far in my hamster wheel of or else, and I don't ever finish that thought. And
mm.
I think there's so much power in playing the tape out because,
Oh, definitely.
or else what? Or
Yes.
else my mom will be mad. I don't like she doesn't live here anymore. Or else
Right.
I'll lose everything. Well, then we like get to
Right.
implement Byron Katie's work. Is that true?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Is
Yes.
that
Yes. No, and to your point, it is important to play the tape out, because what happens when we don't, we're actually leaning into, we're creating false beliefs around it. Right. And
100%?
so, and so by playing it out, and this is something I challenge a lot of people to do, is not just play it out, write it out. Why?
Mhm.
Because now you're seeing it on paper. Now you're separated from those thoughts and you can actually truly evaluate them. Like, really? Is this really true? Is this really going to happen? Oh, and here's the other part. If this does happen, will I do? And we recognize we have the capacity to meet that challenge. And so it doesn't scare us anymore.
Right. Right. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
good. I've loved this conversation. Like, like that's perfect. Great. I'll take it. Okay. Here's a mini episode for you, everybody. No, I like I want to talk to you all day now. Um, yeah, thank you for that. It's so true. And there are these practices that we have that maybe there's a lot of accolades that come with that. There's a
Mm,
lot of, just back to no fun till the
hmm
chores are done, is
hmm
that a lot of people say to me, I have no idea how you do everything you do. And
hmm
there is there's some pride in that. There's
Oh, totally.
some I take that as a compliment. I take that as, oh, yes, but then when the time comes to rest, whether it's because when the time changes and it gets dark earlier,
Hmm
it feels like a freebie to me because I'm a farmer. So usually I'm out until the sun goes down at 9. Then
Right.
there's a lot of things that get accomplished. And if the sun goes down at 4, there's not. And so
Right.
it's this transitioning into this, like I'm arguing, not arguing, but validating it to myself.
hmm
Well, it's
hmm
dark.
hmm
Well, it's Wednesday. Well,
Right. Right. Right.
Amelia is with
Yes.
her dad. So, and I'm not even hungry. So I guess I can watch a show. I don't know about that. Like, I guess, unless somebody calls me. I don't
Well,
know.
here's the thing too, that what you said is really important though, because there is affirmation and accolades that come with it, right?
Mhm,
And so what happens, I do think, is that we get used to that. And that's part of the scariness as well, is,
mhm,
well, shoot, if I don't do those things, I'm not suddenly the person that gets seen as, oh my gosh, how do you get all that done?
mhm.
there's a lack of safety in that too, right? Because we've gotten used to that. And that's where that over identification comes in with the affirmations or the accolades, because we start saying, well, that's me. That's not you. And that's where that separation has to happen again, where it's getting all that done. And yes, I agree. I've always been the person who's like, let me get my stuff done before I go have fun. So definitely resonates with me. I try to actually pull back a little bit. But
Right.
part of it is the over identification with the doing, and
Mhm.
we have to just reintroduce the being.
Yeah. How do you help your clients do that?
It's funny when I first start introducing the concept to them, they look at me dumbfounded, like, What are you even saying? I have to do, like, that's who I am."
Right. Who
And
is
so
going to
one of the
do
things,
this if I don't do this?
and so part of it is to start them to help them start seeing the distinction between their roles that they're playing and who they are as a person, right? Because so much of the doing and the achievement is wrapped up in a role. And so if they can start seeing the roles as just, okay, yes, maybe like for me, I'm a coach during the day, and then I'm mom, right? And then, I'm a daughter and all these things. Those are my roles, but they don't
Right.
make comedy. The way I show up in each of those, who I'm being in each of those is who I am. And so that's the work that we really start to get to, because when
Sure.
we start to get to that core, then it doesn't, to your point about looking for safety, it doesn't feel so scary,
Right.
because whether I'm resting or not resting, I'm still me, right? And so we're not,
Right.
so we allow for that detachment from the doing, and we
Right.
we recognize that we who we are as the being.
I love that. And I love that, in this season of reinvention, which all of us that are evolving are continuously reinventing ourselves, but I feel like I'm intentionally reinventing myself right now. That is such a helpful nugget of wisdom because I know who I'm becoming.
Mhm.
I know all the attributes of her. I am casting votes for her all day long, every day. And choosing to rest is casting a vote for the woman I'm becoming. So thank you.
Yes.
Please bill me for this session. It's unbelievable. Yay. Isn't it so fun how just that shift from knowing to knowing. Like I
Mhm.
feel that I have certainty and I have practices that are already around that I can just duplicate when it comes to rest as well.
Yes, yes. And part of the work too, I think, is us bringing that awareness, because so often we are
Mhm,
on autopilot. And so it really
mhm.
does come down to what can we make conscious, which is sitting in our subconscious, because those are messages and they are beliefs that we've taken on, right? They're these thoughts that we've taken on as true, and it is a reprogramming of those things.
Right.
But we can only do that when we bring them to the awareness, and then we take action with what we are now aware of.
Totally, which for me happens in community,
Hmm.
happens in collaboration, in connection, which is why when before we hit record, and I've told my listeners before, I love Thursdays because it's the day that I record my podcast, and I am not the same woman on Thursday afternoon that I was on Thursday morning. And so the last interview of Thursday, like I'm just, my channel is open for all the goodness and all the insights and the implementation because I have put myself in an environment that is supportive, that is casting a vote for the woman I'm becoming. So
Yeah.
if we have to binge on a bunch of podcasts or if we need to be in some sort of mastermind or of
Hmm.
course working with a coach but also with a community of
Hmm.
other people that their commitment to themselves is real and so is yours, that they're in a season of yes and so are you, that there's a Bible verse that talks about how as iron sharpens iron, so one
Hmm.
man sharpens another. So it's this not bumping up against your edges, but this community of like-mindedness and heart-centeredness that it prepares the ground for all these seeds that are falling, and then they can really take root.
100%, because also in those like-minded communities, we're accessing a couple other really important things that I think we need as humans, which is we need to know we matter
Mm-hmm.
and we need to be seen. And if you're in a community of those like-minded individuals, those two needs are going to be met. And so then you really can, to your point, you can blossom because you're in that environment that's encouraging it. And you do feel that you matter and you're seen, which allows for so many of these transformations to happen.
It's true. And even the decision to involve ourselves in such communities
Mm-hmm.
is a way that makes us feel seen because we see ourselves.
Oh gosh, 100%. I mean, any of this work, I say this routinely when people are, because they'll have that moment of like, oh gosh, paying for a coach or investing in a coach that feels really scary.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it is not just an investment in yourself. It's exactly as you said, it's an investment in really seeing yourself and again, knowing you matter. It's making yourself a priority in a very self-full way.
That's right. And there's no transformation without transaction. So that is the more expensive it is, like the more seriously, like I've had coaches that felt expensive at the time, and then I've significantly upgraded in the dollar amount that I've invested in my personal development. Was that other higher priced person a better coach than the other one? Probably not,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
it was who I believed myself to be, who I bought into, who I was becoming, the person that was, I am the woman who works with the coach I want to work with. I am
Yes.
the woman who goes to Paris. I am the woman who invites other people to come with me because those are those things that are like, oh, yeah, my trips are expensive that I offer for. So I lead culinary trips
Mm-hmm.
to France for
Mm-hmm.
solo female travelers. They are expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and they're expensive because I know the places that we want to stay and I know where we
Right.
want to eat and I know what we want to do and I know the
Mm-hmm.
service I provide and I know the value and
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. I'm happy to provide a cost analysis,
Right.
and nobody ever regrets going. Nobody ever
Right.
regrets saying yes to themselves. And there's so much that happens even in just the practice of pushing that button.
Mm-hmm.
That's the transformation. It's not what this
Oh yeah.
coach or this trip is going to provide for you on the other side. It's who you became when you
Yes.
said yes to the opportunity.
Yes. Who you became when you said yes to the opportunity and who you continue to become every time that you put in the effort and you put in what you want. In order to become, you need to put in for yourself, right? It's
That's
the
right.
investment over and over again.
Mhm.
And that's the struggle that I think people really come up against because I mean, as a society, I think we do get scared of spending
Sure.
money on something. And really, what it comes down to is I've had this conversation so many times because people feel so guilty.
Hmm.
And we have to ask ourselves, where is that story even coming from? Because what you're investing in is you. And if you aren't who you want to become, you aren't who you want to be, then how are you showing up in all the areas of your life? Are you actually fully engaged? You see what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
almost becomes an autopilot
Mhm.
perspective where I'm just showing up and doing, but I'm not fully me.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And we don't want, I remember, I don't know why this example is coming up for me, but I remember when LASIK surgeries
Oh yeah.
first started,
Yeah.
and I wore glasses and I was looking at some options for it. Turns out I'm not a candidate, but I looked at something and it was whatever, $4,000. And then someone told me like, "Oh, I saw an ad, this person, it's half the price." And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, "Oh, that's amazing. Oh, wait a minute. Like, you probably don't want to cheap out on your
On
eyeballs.
your eyes.
That is probably like, this is not, I'm going to buy those pants at H&M because they're trendy. Like,
You're
this is
right.
not a
Yes.
fad. This is something. So
Right.
it's when we are valuing the return, it's not, of course you're a mom, I'm a mom. We want the best for our kids, and we
Mm-hmm.
all understand that drama camp and art camp
Mm-hmm.
and sewing and all of those things, all the sports camps, the better ones cost more money, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what we want because we want them to have the best situation that they could have, and we just don't do that for ourselves.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Do you think that falls under people pleasing?
I wrestled with this because I
Yeah,
definitely have mentioned I'm a people pleaser.
me
I
too.
do think I do think it falls under people pleasing.
Mhm.
It's the over functioning part of us, right? Where we want to
Right.
make sure everybody else is okay,
Mhm.
they're taken care of. And I'm not saying we don't care about others, but with people pleasing, we lose track of ourselves in that. And if we
Right.
never are making the list, we
Mhm.
really do have to look at that and say, okay, is this over functioning? Is this people pleasing to an extent where I'm not even thinking about my own needs?
Right. And where does it, for me, how does that come into, well, then they'll not think I'm amazing, or they won't, how am I doing all these things, or whatever, it's like all of those narratives, they don't
Mm-hmm.
just show up in that one area, but
Oh
the
yeah.
over functioning, the high functioning codependency,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
um, Terry Cole talks about in her book Boundary Boss. And it's the inability for us to witness another person's discomfort based on their own action or inaction.
Yes.
Like, I
Yes.
need to do this for you because if it's not done, it's messing with my joy. So
Mm-hmm.
I need to
Mm-hmm.
overfunction, which turns regular functioning people into non-functioning people. And
Yep.
then it just it holds us there. We're trapped.
Oh, we're stuck. We're absolutely stuck. And yes, you're absolutely right about the high functioning codependency too. It's because we start to then need that in order to feel validated and that we're doing what we need. And then, as Terry Cole talks about, that's where resentment starts to build and build and build and build until it affects the actual relationship.
Of which they did not have
Have
any
any part of it.
role in
Exactly.
creating this
Yes.
mess that we blame them for.
Right. Right. And you mentioned something that's really important. And I think that it's something that I talk about routinely too, is that, you know, especially if you're a people pleaser, it is learning and building this muscle of being okay sitting with the discomfort of watching somebody else have an emotion that's not one that you control.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. Or sitting in the discomfort of having them be disappointed in you.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yes. That is a line that I probably say more times than I can count, which is exercise is building your muscle in learning and sitting with the idea that somebody will feel unhappy and knowing that that is still their response to the situation. They will be unhappy with you.
Right.
And that's just because of how they're choosing to respond. You don't own that.
Right. It's so freeing and mind blowing and transformational, and so far out of the narrative of our conditioning to believe that how we feel, there's nothing more important than how we feel, and that we
Mm-hmm.
are in charge of that. And so often we think, well, if somebody would just do this thing that I
Right.
keep asking them to do, then I would be happy. Or if they would stop doing this thing,
Mm-hmm.
then I would be happy. And it's not how it works, friends. Like, we
Nope.
have to be in control and in charge of what's going on inside us and
Mm-hmm.
choose a better feeling thought.
Well, right, because yes, we think that they need to do this or not do this, and then I will feel happy. When in fact, the equation is completely flipped. It's
That's right.
my response to whatever they're doing or not doing is creating that feeling,
Hmm.
right? That's mine. Oh, if that's mine, then I can look at this and I can have different thoughts about the thing, right?
Right.
And also, let me just not bypass emotions completely because I fully believe
Yes.
that we've been conditioned to say certain emotions are good and certain are bad, and we want to avoid the bad ones. It's important to recognize that the emotions we feel are just data packets and they're giving us information, right? And so if we can just simply get curious with the emotion and say, okay, I've noticed I'm feeling this way. What's this about? What's it telling me? When we
Right.
get curious with it, now we can move through it. And again, we start taking that agency back rather than saying that they
Yes.
have ownership of how we're feeling.
Exactly. And it sounds like, well, I'm not just going to stop. This is the voice of not me, if you didn't get that. People are like, I don't want to just stop and say, how am I feeling? I feel angry. Well, yes, it does sound ridiculous and elementary because
Mhm.
this is an underused muscle. So you're not going to have this conversation out loud, but you might benefit from grabbing your journal and a pen and just say, hey, Wendy, this is fear, and this is what I need you to know. And you can just write to yourself from that emotion because it's showing up because it's asking for a voice. And the longer, again, you're a mom, I'm a mom, the longer we ignore the toddler,
Yes.
they do not get quieter. And
Uh-huh.
I heard someone, I don't know if it was Amber Lillystrom, I can't remember. Anyway, someone was saying that the louder the bigger the response, the bigger the emotion, the smaller the age of the voice. So,
Mm-hmm.
like if it's
Mm-hmm.
a inner child
Yes.
situation,
Yes.
that's going to be louder the because when we were little, we didn't know how to read a room
Mm-hmm.
or keep our
Mm-hmm.
voices down or
Right.
whatever we were told to do, that response is going to be big. And now I'm now remembering from your extensive fabulous bio that you do some work with that in internal family systems.
Yes, I do a lot of work with internal family systems and also reparenting the inner child. The internal family systems really looks at the parts of us, right? Like what part is that? How old is that part? Those are really important questions to ask. And to your point about the inner child or how loud it is, I've also learned in my work that the louder it is, it's usually indicative of how long it's been there and ignored. Just like a temper tantruming child, they get louder and louder. It's
Mhm.
a very similar experience where if we have come up against this and the emotion has been suppressed and then it's been suppressed and then suppressed and suppressed, eventually it gets really loud. It's usually because that's been around for a really long time.
Mm.
And we just have to look at that part and be like, okay, what is this part? What's this part's about? What is this part's intention? Why is it showing up? What's it trying to communicate to me? What's it saying? Which
Right.
is such an important question to ask. I love how you said that. Take out a journal and write to yourself, right? Let the emotion talk to you. And I often say that too. I love how you said, put it in the third person. I say that routinely is go into the third person because 9 times out of 10, it is so much easier. And I talk about this in context of self compassion, so much easier to be nicer to somebody else. So go there with all of it. Go into the third person, have a conversation with yourself, but from the third person so that you can really become an observer because once you step outside of it, again, I mentioned this before, we become over identified with things. When we step outside of it, we can now step into observer mode and we have that distance and we're not the thing anymore. We're not the emotion. We're not the thought. I'm Kamini and here are the thoughts and the emotions and I can now do something with them.
Right. And there's such a beautiful unfolding in that journaling process because it's taking what's in your head
Mm-hmm.
down to your heart through your
Mm-hmm.
hands,
Mm-hmm.
because in that writing style, in whether it's morning pages, Julia Cameron's work,
Right.
or doing this kind of journaling in the third person as your emotion, I don't know what I'm going to write until it comes out. And
Yes.
it's just this free flowing that it can be scary if you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's going to come out and you're not
Mm-hmm.
ready to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, there's so much wisdom and grace, and it's a reminder that we do have everything that we need inside of us. Like this whole flight plan, the whole map, the whole everything is inside of us, and it's safe and wise and resourceful
Mm-hmm.
to do this work.
Yes. I love your analogy of the flight plan. You're right. I mean, we all have that. And I think that's the thing that, especially with journaling, we're giving access to them. We're giving access to the inner knowing. We're giving access to that flight plan, to the inner voice, to that, the gut feelings, right? We're giving ourselves permission to access that because what happens is we get so stuck in our thoughts and we have to be able to drop down into that heart space and allow it to speak to us. A lot of people will ask me about journaling because, for some people it seems cumbersome and I get that. It is such an important way though to again, we go back to witnessing. We need to be witnessed. We need to know we matter. It's a way to witness yourself. It's an
Mhm.
exercise in that. And for those people who are really opposed to sitting down and writing, and I do work with a lot of people who are coming from toxic dynamics and maybe it doesn't feel safe to write those things down.
Right.
I routinely will suggest doing voice memos, talk to yourself, and then you can witness yourself that way and you can still have a conversation and then you can delete it. It's you don't have to keep it. But it's another way that you can access that witnessing so that you
Yeah.
can still move through it.
Mm. And then what do we do with this newfound awareness then?
And that's, I think, the thing that scares people. And you had mentioned that, like, if we're not ready for it, it's like, oh no, now that I see this, I can't unsee it.
Right.
And it's really important to then say, okay, now that I do have the awareness, what values based action do I want to take? And it doesn't have to be a ginormous action, it can be a small step,
Right.
right? Because again, small steps are going to compound to make the larger steps. Just like I was mentioning with the relaxing, right? Okay, I'm going to start with 5 minutes walking around my house and then it's
Right.
gradually increased. It's the same concept. We have this awareness. We can sit and just re regulate because maybe we weren't ready to kind of have the awareness and then figure out what is that values based action I want to take. And maybe we don't make it huge, we make it small. And then we build off of that. Just like we would use a step ladder, we do the same thing with the steps we take.
Sure. Oh, I
Mhm.
love that. Okay. And then you've mentioned values based action, which
Mhm.
I've not heard those words strung together. So I feel like that must be a part of your work. I would assume that that's something that you would have identified before when you started journaling because.
Well, yes, exactly. Because
Mhm.
part of it is for the work that I do, especially, it's all centered around that relationship with self. And so one of the really important things is for us to take the time to identify, for each individual person to identify what are my values. Because if we think about how we grow up, most of us, we're kids and we're with our family and then we go off into the world, but we don't really ever take time to evaluate what's meaningful to me. We kind of take on what we were taught.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but at some point we need to maybe pause and say, okay, what actually is meaningful to me? Just
Right.
because this is meaningful to my family of origin doesn't mean that to me. What are my core values? That can be your ground zero. That's your guiding light to say, when we're taking action, how and what action would be meaningful to me? Now that I'm
Mhm.
aware of this, what action can I take that is meaningful, that matters to me, that moves me forward?
And sometimes that can be just acknowledging that I'm seeing myself, acknowledging the witness.
Yes.
Once you start journaling doesn't mean you're gonna, like, blow your whole life up, but you'll have some information and it's helpful.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think that's why people do get scared of it because they do feel like, well, everything I've known is going to go away. And that's, again, not the case. It's just you're more aware of things and then you
Right,
can choose how you want to move forward. And you can
right.
choose, like you said, it's just maybe it is an acknowledgement of like, oh, okay, that's, how I've been showing up. Okay.
Yeah,
And maybe when you're ready, you start taking an action. Maybe the first action is just learning to sit with it.
yeah, and having compassion, like you said, the bigger it is, the longer it's been ignored, and having compassion for that little girl.
Hmm. Yes. And talking to her and just
Mhm.
offering her what she needed to hear.
Yes. I work with a coach that gave me an assignment similar to that, that had me go back to, there's been some repeated traumatic behavior that I've
Hmm.
experienced, so much so that I can say it like it's not a big deal because it's
Okay.
really practiced.
Uh,
And to go back into those situations and show up as the adult that I
hmm.
was hoping was going to show up and
Right.
assumed was going to show up any minute, and then I was going to be safer. Um,
Yep.
I get to be her.
Hmm.
I get to go back and, whew, um, I'm a little bit of a potty mouth when I go back, and
Hmm.
it has been so empowering
Mm.
to do that. And she kept checking in, like, how are you doing? I know that was really big. And I was like, I'm having so much fun that I'm actually spacing it out as a prize for each day because it, like, I'm a boss. And
Hmm.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
want to go into it too much here,
Yeah.
like in my excitement, but you can play the whole tape out on how scary you think this is going to be to look under the hood. But when you play that tape out, you might find that you're actually a badass and you can put your cape on and go
And
into all
handle
of
it.
those. Right.
Yes, and handle it. Because again, that the way what we needed, and especially those moments, those traumatic events, when we needed an adult to show up and they didn't show up, and that little girl stayed, it's almost like that little girl didn't have what she needed. When we
Mm-hmm.
can go back and be that adult and to witness that little girl getting to hear the protection that she needed or hear whatever needed to be said, that is a way that we reparent, first of all.
Mm.
And it allows our inner child to now have a different experience and to look at whatever that event was with a totally different lens,
Yeah, for
which is
sure.
so powerful. And again, to what you just said, it also realigns ourselves with our inner power and knowing that we do have agency and we can reclaim that agency whenever we want.
It's a superpower.
Absolutely.
Because even
Yes.
just in the recalling, it was a couple of weeks ago, but now in just recalling that to you, I'm like, oh yeah, I do not tolerate bad behavior.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
not available.
Yes, yes. It's an interesting thing because I definitely work with a similar exercise. And I will say that some people, when they first hear it, they're like, wait, what do you want me to do? I don't understand. And again, it's different. We haven't been taught these things. And
Hmm.
then when they do it very similarly, they're like, oh my gosh. And then we also see an expression of emotion that's been pent up for years.
Hmm. Yep. Because there were only, a few tolerated emotions, and
Exactly.
they did
Yes.
not include potty mouth. Yep. Yep. It's unbelievable. So, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned reparenting ourselves.
Hmm.
Can you say more about that, please?
Yeah. So, what I have learned in my work is that oftentimes the patterns we're showing up with, or the way that we're treating ourselves, or just, our behaviors, they often are results of messages or the lack of messages that we received when we were younger. And so, oftentimes we have to go back and look at what we needed, like our younger self, and offer ourselves those things that we were needing. Unfortunately, it's not spoken about, but there is this concept out there, and I cannot recall. I want to say her first name is Lindsay, but I can't recall her name. But she has a book out there that talks about adult children of emotionally immature parents.
Oh,
it
right.
is it is a great example of why we have to reparent, because so
Yeah,
often we are in dynamics where we are not getting what we need because the people who are in charge don't have the capacity. And this isn't a blame game, this isn't a
right.
judgment at all. It's just to say, as adults now, we owe it to ourselves to recognize what we needed and to give ourselves permission to go back and reparent that younger self and offer her him what they needed,
Right.
and teach them, what it means to love oneself and to acknowledge emotions and to acknowledge needs and to do all of those things. When we don't give ourselves that permission, we then repeat those patterns. We don't ever step outside of it.
Right. Right. And we could be doing it completely unbeknownst to us. It
Right.
doesn't make sense
Right.
to our evolved adult brain. It doesn't make sense, these tenets that we're allowing unchecked to rule our lives. And it doesn't, like you said, it's not a blame game. It's not, our parents were doing the best they could with the tools that they had. And
Mhm.
also, this tenet was whatever the 3-year-old version of me translated,
Right.
whatever the words that, I mean, they could have read the right book and said the right thing. And in my 3-year-oldness, I didn't internalize it the way that it was sent over. And that
Right.
has been the premise that's been running the show this whole time.
Right.
So it is just, I mean, it's just what it's called. It's self discovery. And
Mhm.
it's also a way that we can witness ourselves in owning that that was our experience, regardless of the intentions,
Mhm.
good or ill, of
Mhm.
the people that were in charge of our care.
Mhm.
This was our experience.
Yes.
And we are now caring for ourselves, reparenting ourselves in that process. I have heard of that book and I cannot recall the woman's name either, but I listened to her do an interview on Glennon Doyle's podcast, and it's really, really good.
Mhm.
We'll link that in
Mhm.
the show notes along with her work. It's phenomenal practice
Mhm.
and life changing and completely, in my case, worth the investment of
Yeah.
time and
Mhm.
emotion and
Mhm.
money and whatever else that it has quote unquote cost me,
Right.
because it gave me back myself.
Yes. Gave you, I'm sure it gave you back yourself and allowed you to reclaim your own agency, which
Yeah,
is at the end of the day what we need in order to build the life that we really want for ourselves.
that's right. And it's really big. The life that I'm
Mhm.
building for myself is very big. It requires a very solid foundation. Yes, I'm so glad. I have loved this conversation. I could easily speak to you for hours. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, please tell everyone where they can find and follow you and anything else that you wanted to say that I didn't ask you about.
Amazing. Well, my website is kaminiwood.com. And if you hop over to the website, there is a free ebook that you can download on limiting beliefs. But moreover, I do have an extensive blog that talks about a lot of the topics that we talked about today in case there's more desire to learn. And then on Instagram and Facebook, my handle is It's Authentic Me.
Beautiful. I'm so excited. Now, is It's Authentic Me, is that your coaching program or is that your, like, say more about that?
Yeah, so I actually created the name Authentic Me as the this is what I'm working towards is helping
Mm,
people really realign with their authentic me outside of external expectations, validations. It's that's my if I'm going to look into my potential, it's my authentic me, right? And so everything is centered around that. The foundation is that.
it's so good. Thank you so much, Kamini. I adore you. I'm a super fan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing this conversation to happen because it was amazing.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wright House and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.